Okay, this next section is our challenge section on our algebra and equations practice test. Okay, I just managed to squeeze it in. So with this one, you notice that there's a negative out here. So we will have to take out a negative as a factor, because we don't want a negative at the beginning, and it's also an important skill to be able to do. So remember, whenever you take a negative out as a factor, all the signs in the brackets will change. So here I'll end up with a negative, and here opposite of negative will be a positive, and that will be taken out. So that's really a positive. So your first step is we'll get our bracket ready. This is a bit, you have to squish it up. I might just remove the equal sign. All right, so if I take out a negative as a factor, which I've done, on this side it's a positive that can be invisible, and over here it's now a negative, and over here it's now a positive. So we still have our 1, 2, 3 sections, but we've got the opposite because I took out a negative. So instead of plus, we've got a takeaway. Instead of takeaway, we've got a plus. And then everything else we do as normal. So 40, 48, and 20, what's the highest factor of those three numbers? The factor I can think of right now is 4. Let's see if that works. 40 divided by 4, different color. 40 divided by 4 is 10. 48 divided by 4, 12. And 20 divided by 4 is 5. So 10, 12, and 5, I can see that there are no more factors that I can divide them by. So 4 was the highest factor. Leftovers, 10 in the middle, 12 on the end, 5. Next, I've got 6 A's here, 2 A's there, and 4 A's there. Take out my smallest amount, which is 2 A's. Out it goes. 6 take away 2 is 4. So I've got 4 A's here. And 4 take away 2 is just 2. So 2 A's here. A's are done. Next, 3 B's here. Unfortunately, I don't have a B in the middle section, so I cannot take any B's out. So B's are automatically leftovers, and they stay the same. I'll cross them off once I've used it. Okay. Next, I've got an X here, 2 X's here, 1 X there. Unfortunately, there's no X on the end. So once again, the X's are also stuck there. So X squared stuck there, and the X is stuck there. And finally, I can see I've got a Y in each section. So I've got 1 Y here, 2 Y's there, and 1 Y there. My smallest amount is 1 Y. It's gone from there and gone from there. But 2 take away 1 is just 1 Y, and that's in the middle. And there we go. We factorize it. And to make sure, if you expand it, do we get what we started off with? We can see with our negatives and positives, they will be correct. I have a negative here, and a positive, and a negative. And hopefully I haven't made a mistake. If I have, just put a post and let me know. With our next challenge question, this one involves 2 important steps. One is the basic skill. When we're dividing fractions, we turn it to times by switching this end here. Okay, that will be your first step. And also factorizing. To simplify this properly, we need to factorize this part here. But first, let's switch this. So we've got 2b minus 10 over 3 times, flip it, 9 over b minus 5. I can see straight away 9 and 3 I can simplify. But with the 2b minus 10, because I can factorize it, I may be able to simplify it with this b minus 5. If it helps, put brackets around the b minus 5. But I'm going to factorize this part here first. So what can I take out from 2b and minus 10? Well, I can see 2 and 10 both have a factor of 2. So I'll take out 2 as a factor. So I'm left with, get my brackets ready, and then take away in the middle. So divide that by 2, it's a 1. 10 divided by 2 is 5. So I've got a 2 on the outside. That was my highest factor. B is stuck there, and my 5 is left over. And we can see we now have b minus 5, which will be the same as this one. So it's over 3 times 9 over, I'll put it in brackets now, b minus 5. And now I'll start simplifying. So b minus 5 is gone, b minus 5 is gone. 9 and 3, I can divide them both by 3, that's a 1. 9 divided by 3 is just 3. So I'll just make some more room. So my final answer will be, we've got 2 times the 3, which is 6, over 1 times 1 is just 1. So your answer should have been 6. With this challenge question, we've actually done one that's quite similar in the previous section, so you should be okay with this. But you notice that we've got 2 squared here, so saying x minus 2 times x minus 2. So to make them the same, you just times this side by itself, x minus 2. And what you do to the bottom, you must do to the top. Now remember, do not start expanding just yet. Okay, first make them all on the same vinculum, the same fraction line. It's really important because that 4 is really a negative 4. So on the bottom, I'll just have x minus 2 squared. Remember, this is saying x minus 2 times x minus 2. That's what it looks like if I didn't have the squared there. There's an invisible times there. And the proper way to write this, we call these perfect squares. To write this, put a square there. Okay? Just keep that in mind. If you wrote it the other way, it's still correct, but it's better to write it this way. So now I've got 7 minus, and then 4 bracket x minus 2. And now don't forget to expand, and that is a negative 4 times x, and a negative 4 times 2. We don't expand the bottom, so we've got 7, and we've got minus 4x, and minus 4 times minus 2 is positive 8, over x minus 2 squared. That just changed colour. And of course, what can we simplify on top? Just make some more room. Well, I can see I got 7 plus 8. That gives me 15. And the minus 4x stays there. So I'll just write it like this. 7 plus 8 is 15. And then minus 4x over the same thing. X minus 2 squared. There's nothing else that we can simplify. If you want to check, can we factorize this, 15 and 4? No, there's no common factor. So that would be your final answer. Okay, with our next question, this one here is an equation, and we've got fractions. And you notice the denominators look a bit confusing. We have to somehow figure out a way to make them all the same. And basically, what we can picture is, we'll end up with something like this. If I multiply them with each other, we should have something like this, x bracket x minus 1, or x times x minus 1. That might be the common denominator. Let's see if it works. So if I times this side by x and times this by x, I'll end up with this. This x has to be multiplied by x minus 1 in brackets. And what you do to the bottom, you do to the top, so x minus 1. And to make this the same as what we've got here, I must times this by x. And we end up with the same denominator, which is this. So let's write it all out. So I've got x over x bracket x minus 1 minus 3 times x minus 1 over x bracket x minus 1, so that's the same, equals negative 1 times x is negative x over x bracket x minus 1. Now that my denominators are all the same, they just cancel out. Okay, so don't let the brackets confuse you. This is just a number. Imagine we had an A or a B. Okay, if you want to change it to an A and then work it out later, you can do that. So now we end up with, x minus 3 bracket x minus 1 equals negative x. And now we just use our equation skills and solve. I'll just make some more room quickly. Alright, so we end up with, expand our brackets, x minus 3 times x is minus 3x, and minus 3 times minus 1 is positive 3 equals negative x. I'm going to bring my x's together now. So, before I do that, I can see I've got x minus 3x on the same side. X minus 3x, or 1 minus 3 simplifies to minus 2x. So minus 2x plus 3 equals minus x. And now I'll bring my x's together. So I'll plus x here. It's gone, just a 0. And plus x. Minus 2 plus x is minus x. Plus 3 equals 0. Nearly there. And now we have to go minus 3 and minus 3. So we've got minus x equals minus 3. And finally, cancel your negatives. So your final answer should have been x equals positive 3. Hopefully you got that. This was quite a challenge one, but you've learned all the skills you need to know, so hopefully it wasn't too complicated. Now the last question that I put in myself, I haven't got the worksheet, so I'm just going to make one up that's similar, is expanding what we call binomials. If you've been watching all the lessons, you should know how to do this because I have put it in one of the lessons. You'll be doing this later on in the year, but it's good to get a head start. All right, so these are binomials, and there's an invisible times here. So what actually happens is we end up doing this. X times x and x times 4. So the x is multiplied with everything in this bracket, as well as the minus 2. So minus 2 times x and minus 2 times 4. That's all you got to do. So x times the x is x squared. X times the positive 4 is positive 4x. Minus 2, this is a minus 2, times x is minus 2x. And minus 2 times a positive 4 is minus 8. And before you stop there, you simplify. X squared should always be first. And there should always, with ones like these, there's always only 1x squared. But you notice we end up with 2x's that we can simplify. 4x minus 2x is just positive 2x. And minus 8 is just there. So that should have been your final answer. Okay, so just mark the one on your worksheet with somebody else. Thank you.